Hello, everyone. Today, we're joined by Dixie Mays, the managing director of mytenantrent.co.uk. Dixie, it's an absolute pleasure having you on. How are you doing today?
I'm not too bad, thank you very much. The sun is shining, so all is good, yeah.
Amazing. And what part of sunny England are you in today?
We're in Kensington, just outside Liverpool.
Amazing, amazing.
Not fortunately not Kensington, London. That might have
Ah,
been a little bit nicer, but
and is that primarily where you're based and your sort of business is from, or do you work remotely
yeah.
all over the UK?
So we're solely based in Liverpool. I came to uni here in Liverpool, so I basically stayed here, and yeah, we do student lets, we do residential lets, we do company lets. We used to do a little bit of Airbnb until COVID kind of stopped all that, and yeah, we do a little bit of everything, a little bit of everything, a little bit of everywhere, essentially. Yeah.
That's perfect. I guess that comes nicely onto my very first question about your background. So, if you wouldn't mind telling us a little about your background, what does your journey look like to getting to the position you're in? And obviously, what does your current role and company comprise of?
Yep. So I came to uni here, studied Egyptology. Doesn't really come in handy on a day-to-day basis, but yeah, I came to uni here. Met my now husband, so obviously ended up staying here. I moved home after graduating and couldn't find a job. This is in 2009. Couldn't find a job. Boyfriend was living here, so ended up moving back up. Again, couldn't really find a job, unfortunately, and ended up working for a bank, call center. Absolutely hated it. And then I just applied for a receptionist role in another letting agency. Went for an interview. They said that the receptionist role had been taken, but then they then offered me another role that hadn't actually been advertised at that time. I jumped at the chance. I was there for 3 years. Um, and at that point, really wasn't getting paid a lot for
Yep.
what I was doing, and we were getting complaints from clients about the way that the owners of that business were doing things. At that point, I was a supervisor, and I was the one that had to take those phone calls, and I couldn't really answer why we were doing certain things. I didn't agree with them myself. So I ended up kind of thinking, do you know what? I think I could probably do this better myself. And to be fair, with the support of my husband, because obviously it was a massive drop in income, we started up my tenant rent from our little two up, two down. I met landlords in cafes and coffee shops and stuff like that. And that was in 2013 when we started. And then, yeah, 2016 ended up getting a little shop. And yeah, from that point, I mean, yeah, how far along are we now? 12 years? Is that right? Is that my maths correct?
Since 2013.
2013. Yeah, so 12,
Yeah,
12 years.
12 years.
We're still doing it, doing really well. Got a
Amazing.
team of seven people, with myself and my husband. And yeah, yeah, do every year we're growing year on year. So it's yeah, doing really well. Stressful, but doing well. Yeah.
Amazing, Dad. That's great to hear. And Dixie, what does your role like at the minute? What is your day to day? I know it's probably busy, lots of things,
Yeah.
but if you can maybe break down for us, how do you structure your day and what does your role entail on a day to day?
So my day, I don't really have any structure. um, I because there's always so much to do. The only real structure I have is that I know that I've got to manage the staff. I've got to make sure that I'm doing their one-to-ones on a regular basis, making sure that they're getting trained, getting their qualifications and things like that. The way that the company is structured, there's no real, what's the word? There's no real way of rising within the company. Um,
Hierarchy. Yeah.
yeah. So we've got to make sure that they are progressing in a completely different way. So we try and do that through knowledge, through experience, anything that they're interested in, we want to nurture. But at the same time, we're also very much like, you've got to have a good work-life balance as well. The way that we manage is completely different really to anywhere that I've worked as well. I've always been a keen believer in that, a leader needs to be someone you lead as by example.
Yeah.
And we're all in the same in lettings. It's a very difficult job. You very rarely get a thank you. And unless you get on well with your team and You can have a good day by spending it with your team. That's the only real job satisfaction that you get from lettings, because it is such a hard job. But yeah, my day usually consists of trying to get the staff to laugh a little bit. Today, for example, Mondays are always coffee and pastry days. So I do a run to Starbucks and to get a load of pastries for everybody. And then Fridays, we have fancy lunch Fridays. So we get a takeaway essentially for everybody. And yeah, it's just the rest of it is really just trying to dealing with dealing with the more complicated issues that may arise, making sure our clients are all happy. I am the go-to person really for a lot of the clients. They want to deal with a head honcho. So I do try to delegate as much as I physically can. That is one of my issues. I don't really like to delegate, but yeah, I do try occasionally.
And Daisy, how important is building a good culture? Because you hear this all the time, culture, keeping morale high and making, I guess, work and the environment a really positive place. So how
Yeah.
important is that to you, and how pivotal has that been to the business's success?
It's really important. My last job, even though I was there for 3 years, I had a boss. I won't name names, but I had a boss who she just, it was horrible. I would always think of myself as a very confident person. I know that I'm capable of a lot, and I do my hardest. I work my hardest. I always want to do my best. My old boss was always very critical, always thought that we could do better. Like, okay, fair enough. If you're positive in that sense, then fine. But she was always very negative about it. And I always found myself, sometimes I only lived 7 minutes away, so I could walk home for lunch. And I never thought I would be in the position where I would go home and cry. And she just made it awful working there. And when I handed in my notice, it was very cloak and dagger. There were a lot of conversations behind my back being had. And I couldn't wait to get out of there at all. And essentially, when we set up this business, we just thought, you know what, I don't like people having KPIs. And this is probably the worst thing for a business model, but I don't like people having KPIs, because I feel like you're taking away the quality, because you're just driven for those numbers. And the thing is, with this kind of business, it's all people led, people by people. I know that's really cheesy.
Yeah.
People by people trust other people. And I myself don't really like the salesy thing.
Yeah.
I'm like, I can always make up my own mind. I don't need to be sold to. You just give me the figures and the facts, and I'll make up my own mind. So we've kind of built the business based around that. And yeah, you spend an awful lot of time with your colleagues. You spend a lot of time with them, more so than you do your family.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you've got to really enjoy spending time with them. And if you don't, we're not going to retain the people that we've got. So it's definitely, yeah, it's very high up on my.
That's amazing. Amazing. Well, perfect. See, with that, if we could transition nicely onto industry trends. So what are some major trends or shifts in the industry you're seeing? And, is it moving in a positive direction? Is it a negative direction? What is the kind of broad perspective on the industry you see at the minute?
Well, that's a good question. Obviously, with a lot of the changes in legislation that's coming in, and that has come in the past, a lot of landlords don't like it. They feel like they're being pushed out of the industry. For letting agents in general, it's some of the things that we've been asked to do, like obviously we have to check everybody's right to rent when they move in somewhere. We're not immigration control. Used to it now, because obviously we've had to do it for a fair few years now.
Yeah.
But when that first came in, we were like, why do we have to do this? This isn't our responsibility. There's other things that are coming in May, where we have to check if people are on a sanctions list, a government sanction list. Obviously, not everybody is necessarily going to need to be checked.
Yeah.
But again, it's things like, if we get a Russian tenant, we have to check that they're not on this sanctions list before we can rent to them. And again, I think that's not really our job to do. It takes away from actually being able to manage properties the way that they're meant to be managed. There are things that really there is legislation that's come in that really should be there.
Yeah.
There's with the writers' rents bill coming in, there are things in that I completely agree with, that should be in. It makes no difference to anyone, whether there's a landlord database with everybody's information, be licensed to be a landlord, that's absolutely fine. My only concern is where responsibilities are being taken away from tenants. We have been made responsible for antisocial behaviour, basically how tenants behave. I've gone to, obviously we manage a lot of student properties, so I've been to quite a fair few meetings with tenants to say, don't have a party, be aware you've got neighbours left, right and centre, you've got to be responsible, and don't play music at 2 o'clock in the morning full blast. These are things that are, you would
Yeah.
normally think, any normal person would actually understand not to do. But if we don't jump through these hoops, we as a landlord, we as the agency and the landlord can get fined for other people's antisocial behaviour. And the tenant, other than being evicted and then moving on to another poor person's
Yeah.
house, that's the only thing that they get dealt. There's no actual responsibility on the tenant. And the problem is, at the moment, that's the way that it all looks like it's going. It seems like the tenant responsibilities are going out the window. Everything is landing on the landlord's feet. And I think that's why there's a lot of landlords that are just going, especially the older landlords and the smaller landlords who maybe have one or two properties. They don't have a lot of money. They pay their mortgage. They make sure the house is nice, in a good condition. They don't have, I suppose they've got a couple of properties just to pay for their retirement, and the attitude that we've had from a lot of tenants, a lot of their parents, has been, landlords are really rich. They're off on holiday every month. They live in mansions and all this kind of stuff. And I had to turn around to one person and say, I'm really sorry, but that's really not the attitude to have. Some people, especially your landlords, for example, they're in their 60s and they've got two properties. They pay the mortgage. They don't get a lot every month, and they do their best. They really do their best, and they've got a nice house. But with the way the legislation is going, I don't like saying the entitlement of tenants, but the entitlement of some tenants, I should say,
Yeah.
has gone through the roof, and they don't want to do anything themselves, and it has made definitely being in property very, very difficult, because you can't have a reasonable conversation with some people, and it makes it that much tougher, because most landlords, most agencies, they do want to do a good job. They do want to make sure that the houses are in a good condition, but some tenants just play the system, unfortunately, and that's what you get in every category where you've got some sort of benefit system or all that kind of stuff. There will be people that make it worse for others.
Very well said. Very well said. But Dixie, a big trend at the minute, I'm sure you've seen as well, and it's been around for the last 5, 10, 15 years, is the social media. So
Yes.
how important is social media to yourself and the business, and where do you see social media heading and its effects on the industry?
So we've tried social media. We do have a Facebook page. We've got Instagram page. We've not really, to be honest, it always lands on my door to post on there. It's just another advertising channel, essentially. I would love to be able to do little videos and, go around, and sometimes even just like, little advice videos or did you know videos and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But again, it just takes away, like we would have to hire someone to do that full time. We've had a couple of members of staff who we did ask to kind of get into that. One was, I'm nearly 40 and I just go on it to, unfortunately I get stuck in the scroll.
Yeah.
And we've had some mid 20-year-old staff. They weren't really interested in doing it either. We've found most of our job really is to find tenants. It's not necessarily to gather a social media following.
Yeah.
That is a completely different road avenue. So whilst I would like to have one just as for brand awareness, I suppose it's not really required with what we do. We retain tenants and get everyone always needs somewhere to live,
Yeah.
and they're always just on Rightmove or on the market or wherever. There will always be people looking for somewhere to live. So social media, whilst it's fun, shall we say, it's not necessary. Yeah, it's really not necessary for us to be able to do our jobs. And we'd probably, I think a couple of years ago, I was looking more at it to say, let's get some posts going. Let's try to do this. Let's do that. But to be honest, most of the time I just post new properties on there, and like a little Merry Christmas note. Nothing substantial, to be honest, at all.
Got you. Amazing. And what are some of the key factors that have contributed, to your success as a company within the industry? Obviously we talked about high morale within the team. Is there any
Yeah.
factors externally that you think would contribute to the success of the company?
Well, part of the setup, I like to think anyway, is we do things a little bit differently. We charge completely differently to other high street agencies. I think as well, I was talking about the salesy aspect of
Yeah.
other. When you think of an estate agent or a lettings agency, you kind of always think about guys in suits and, just being really salesy and not very genuine.
Yeah, down to earth.
Um, and to be honest, we've kind of tried to make our staff just be themselves. I think that's really, really what's made most of our clients, when I say clients, I mean landlords, that's what's really made them trust us. We don't beat around the bush. If we're going to say something, if they need to know something that's not going to make them very happy, we will tell them. We don't, it's not, we don't, was it overpromise and then underdeliver?
Yeah.
We just talk like we're normal people, and I think that's really, really helped, because it just means the trust is there. We've also delivered what we've always stated we will. We work hard for everybody as well. It's not, if someone emails us, we respond within half an hour. We always answer the phone calls as much as we physically can, with the amount of lines that we've got coming into the office. If we don't get back to someone, I wonder why we haven't gotten back to someone, because it's very, very rare that we don't get back to someone. There's just been, a lot of clients have just been really happy with the back and forth that we've had with them. And they know my son was born prematurely about 3 years ago, and the amount of, I want to say, love that came in from our clients, because they know our backgrounds. They know, we bring my dog in. He's the office dog, and everyone knows him. He's starred on our social media as well. But we are people to them. We're not just names on emails. They know who we are. I used to invite them all to our Christmas party and stuff like that. But obviously, knowing that not everyone's going to come, but we did have a lot of landlords that did come, and it just breaches that client barrier, because
Yeah.
they know you, and they're more likely to trust you. Obviously, with new landlords, it's a little bit different, because you don't have that straight away. But I've always kind of thought, like I said before, people by people. So the more you can just speak to someone normally, the better, really. The good thing is as well, we don't charge through the roof for what we do either. So we don't charge for like inventories, checkouts, inspections, all the things under the sun that other agencies do. I don't think they believe us when we say that we don't charge all this stuff. And then obviously you get the landlords that come and say, I'm bringing one property to you. Is there any movement in your fees? And I never negotiate. I never negotiate with them. And then they always sign up with us, because I think at the end of the day, I think they like the fact that I
Deliver. Yeah. Over deliver.
yeah.
Very well said. Very well said. Now, Dixie, that's amazing to hear some of the strengths of the business. I guess if you wouldn't mind touching on maybe some challenges, what are some challenging areas within the business? Perhaps maybe operationally, maybe perhaps within sales, or
Yeah.
what are some challenges that the business is perhaps having? How are you looking to overcome those challenges?
So it's staff wise, I mean, we've been through a lot of staff, and to be honest, it's really only because a lot of people think it's easy to manage properties. A lot of people don't realize what goes into it. Like, for example, we've got to be available, I've got to be available 24/7 for our tenants, essentially. If there's an emergency over out of office hours, during weekends and things like that, someone has to be available to take a phone call. Or what we do is we've got we used to have a WhatsApp line, and obviously dealing with students, we had a lot of things that weren't necessarily emergencies, like Wi-Fi going down and 2 o'clock in the morning phone calls where people have lost their keys. And I used to get phone calls and have to have essentially arguments with people at 2 o'clock in the morning where they didn't want to get a locksmith in and all that kind of stuff. And it was my problem at that stage. And I don't want to be having no arguments. I want to be asleep. So we ended up just getting a form, an online form that people can fill out, so that I could actually kind of get a barrier in there, because it got to a point where I was just like, I'm not off. I don't have a break at all. The staff, I don't want to give that to the staff, because A, I'd have to pay them too much for overtime, but B, like I said before, we've got to try and nurture a good work-life balance. And a lot of our staff have kids. And at the end of the day, family's more important. That's the stuff that you're going to remember. And I don't want them remembering work.
Right.
Yeah, like I say, the day to day, we very rarely get a thank you from our clients. We do, like at Christmas time, it's great, because the amount of wine that we get through.
You stocked out for the year.
Yeah, basically, and chocolate. We get a lot of that. But yeah, we very, very, very rarely get a thank you from the tenants, because they just expect it. They think that, okay, yeah, it's a job, but it's a job that you would like to have a thank you for.
Absolutely.
And when people do say thank you, I genuinely feel like, thank you so much. That, I've gone back to one tenant this year and just said, do you know what? Thank you. Thank you for your thank you. We've very rarely get thank yous. So this has really made my day. And we got another one the other day, and I was like, what's going on? Where are all these thank yous coming from? But you'd never know from our Google reviews, to be fair, that people actually thank us for what we do. But yeah, that's really the hardest thing, is making sure that everyone's happy within their role. Yeah,
Amazing.
it's yeah, in how many years? My brain's gone, however many years, 12 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably we've had a couple of apprentices. We've had, I think no one really has stayed longer than, or saying that, Hannah has been with us for 6 years now. She's our longest serving. And I think we've had some people that turn up for the job for a day and then literally don't turn up the next day, because it's not what they thought it was going to be. There are certain roles in the office that aren't really anyone's cup of tea. We struggle to find a maintenance administrator, because you imagine that's the worst role. It's just people moaning and saying things are going wrong, and it's problem solving, which is great, but again, you don't get a thank you. So it's just people moaning at you all the time. Thankfully, we found someone who actually enjoys that role. But yeah, we've unless you're in lettings initially, you just don't know what it's like unless you're in lettings. That's the problem. Otherwise, it's really just people management inside and out of the business, I suppose. It's yeah, I've tried to get people who are, I don't want to say self-managing. I basically said to people, look, I am not going to micromanage you. I am going to expect you to do your job. I'm going to expect you to do your role, and I will only come down on you if you're not doing your job. You're here to do that. I don't want to be having a go at you. I don't want to be, over your shoulder all day, every day. I will show you what to do, and I will train you to the best of my ability, and I will make sure that you're, developing as you should do. But I do not want to be looking over your shoulder. We're all a team. I need to make sure that you are
Playing your role.
you're playing your role, so that the rest, so it works. So it just works. Yeah.
Very well said. Yeah, amazing. Now, Dixie, I'm sure you've seen this. This trend has exploded in the last, couple of years. Is AI
Yeah.
automations and things like that. And I've seen myself a lot of businesses within a similar industry implement a lot of AI and bring it on board. I guess as another team member to take over a lot of the heavy lifting. So is that something you're already doing and, benefiting from AI and its, advancements? Or is that something you're looking into in the near future? And what are some ways you think you could implement the technology?
So we've been, I have been using AI to a point with generating, property descriptions and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because there's only so many property descriptions that you can write without saying exactly the same thing. And I have seen, I've had a lot of emails with regards to like AI assistants and, booking in inquiries and things like that. But I don't want to take away from that, um, people knowing people and
Human
people
touch.
knowing, who we are all really. If you become a tenant of ours, you're going to be dealing with us on a day-to-day basis, and it just makes it. I want to say it makes it a lot easier to deal with people because
Yeah.
they know you. But obviously, there's a with AI, there's a little bit more of a formality there, I suppose, and it does take away. I think it takes away just the
Human touch.
rapport that you can have.
Yeah.
Yeah, the human
The
element of
connection.
it. Yeah, yeah. I'm very much happy to look into systems that can use AI. Yeah.
Yeah.
My motto for the last couple of years has been work smarter, not harder. So that is definitely something that I'd be interested in looking into. But for now, is something like obviously Liverpool as well. It's one of these areas where there's not massive amounts of spare employment. So I'd rather give someone a job, really, even if it is just a little receptionist role. I'd
Yeah.
rather give
All
someone
right.
a job than
Amazing.
give that to AI.
Amazing. And now, I guess, just to come to a close, what are some future goals? What are the next 6 to 12 months looks like for yourself and the company? And what are some of the goals you're looking to achieve? Obviously goals look different for everyone, but what does
Yeah.
it look like for yourself?
So we're looking currently well, at the moment, we're getting prepared for the summer turnover. Every year it seems to just, but we get up to Christmas and then January we're looking at the summer turnover, and then summer goes and we're looking to Christmas and then it's summer again. It's so quick, it's ridiculous. So we're gearing up for that now. We're taking on a lot more properties with the new legislation coming in as well. We've got that to prepare for, depending what comes in. We just don't know what to expect with that at all. So yeah, hopefully we won't necessarily need to change a lot about the business, but we can't do anything until we know for definite what's coming in. And yeah, just at the moment, just continue as we are, because we're doing really well. We've got a lot of clients who are referring us to their friends who are buying properties and things. We've never advertised to other landlords directly.
Yeah.
It's always been through word of mouth, so that's a great aspect as well. And yeah, it's just we've never really wanted to take over the world, with the business, but we are wanting to. We've got space here for at least another 2 or 3 members of staff. We're looking at offering just basically just getting more revenue streams in as well.
Yeah.
We don't really want to have to increase our management fee again, because obviously with the living wage going up, and obviously that's going to affect salaries and things like that,
Yeah.
because we don't have all of these other lovely ways of charging people. We just have a flat fee, so we've got to try and think of other ways to get a little bit more revenue in. So we're doing property sourcing now. We just started doing sourcing, training up one of my other members of staff to help out with that. We're doing in-house sales as well to try and get a little bit more revenue from that too. And yeah, just more of the same, but like I say, working smarter, not harder, really.
Very well
And
said. Perfect. And now, Dixie, what is the biggest piece of advice you've learned the hard way, or the biggest piece of advice you wish you knew when you were starting?
you know what? You hear people say it all the time, but find something that you enjoy doing, because it is definitely, you spend an awful lot of time at work, an awful lot of time. And if you don't enjoy it, I mean, probably from what I've been saying, I know, lettings, it's, unless you are into property and unless you like doing a good job and you like, um, you know, dealing with people, it is a very, very hard job. But I know I'm good at it, and I enjoy things that I'm good at. But if you didn't like doing this, you wouldn't, you'd be miserable,
Mm.
So it's definitely a case of make sure that you find something that you enjoy doing, find people that you enjoy working with. Um, Otherwise you'll just be miserable, and it's a lot of time, it's a
Absolutely.
lot of time to be
That's
spent. So yeah.
very, very well said. Well, Dixie, that's very nice to point to wrap up on. Really do appreciate your insights, and I'm sure everyone has really found a lot of value. And I guess thank you for everyone who has tuned in. Any final notes before we wrap up?
No, just enjoy the weather while we've got it.
While we can. Well, Dixie, thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it.